Thank you so much, Karen and Terry, for two excellent presentations on, aging, old people and long-term care, and also, the impact of care system on people's health. So I'm going to open the discussion to the floor. Yeah. So do we have any questions or comments to make?
Yeah, we do have a question. Terry, would you mind look at the questions and try to answer the questions?
Yeah, the question is, let me see, whether the older person's relationship with others affects their mental well-being, but that wasn't examined as a co-founder. Or yes, in this study, we did not look into their relationship with other people. In fact, there is a lot of study looking into the social capital and mental wellness. In those social capital studies, they look into their relationship, their support network, as well as their volunteering, their civic engagement process. So our study, we did not really look, or we did not collect information about their social support network here. So sorry, we don't examine it as a co-founder or mediator for this study. But the evidence are quite strong in terms of social capital and mental wellness. May I ask a question to Karen?
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Karen, hi. I'm very interested in your conclusion that defamiliarization actually help reduce the inequality, right?
Yes.
But were you able to separate the defamiliarization by provision of services by state versus defamiliarization by provision of cash to the people? Because you have two, in your chart, you have two processes of defamiliarization. So were you able to separate the two or make a conclusion which one actually reduce inequality more?
We weren't, this is the problem. So with the kind of, it's because we relied on long-term care beds for the wider one. We're thinking of that as a kind of proxy for the provision of in-kind services rather than cash. Okay. But I mean, that was the original idea. Okay. Is that, it would have been wonderful. I mean, we did collect these indicators, but a lot of those indicators were 2 time periods and there was very little change over time. Okay. So ideally, our original idea had been, I was very interested in cash for care because our theory would be that that would create more inequalities.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the puzzle. The question I have, I was involved in the cash and counseling program in the United States, and it is still a pilot project, as well as the cash allowance program in Hong Kong, which provide, and also there is a voucher program too, to provide cash voucher to user of long-term care services. So I just wonder whether this kind of arrangement will reinforce the inequality already exists in the system, or it will help lower the inequality, right? But what you find is defamiliarization will help lower the inequality. But I don't know whether the same conclusion can be applied to both provision of services by the state versus provision of cash allowance by the state.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key, which would really be interesting to look at. And also because it gets even more complicated because, sometimes when you cash to the care user, which we, following Saracena would consider, defamiliarization, through the market, but often can be used to pay family members.
Yeah.
And then our argument was that would potentially lead to greater inequalities because if you give it to family members, it's also women in lower SES groups who might be more likely to take it or, drop out of the market and then they don't have pensions. And that was the same idea behind what we had thought about supported familism. So giving it to the caregiver, that might lead to greater inequalities, but we weren't able to test that directly.
Okay. But there is also another very different cultural differences in terms of policy research in the European tradition versus in the US tradition, right? In the US, when I studied the cash and counseling program, we never ask questions like this one. So, for example, how much cash and counseling program may affect the inequality in long-term care system? We focus on the cost effectiveness. Of the cash and counseling program, but we never thought about the impact on inequality. So I think that is also a very interesting kind of cultural differences in policy research,
Yeah.
European versus North America.
Yeah. I mean, part of our thing with Ludovico and Mauricio, they're actually focusing on some specific policies. So I think the way to go in the future is actually to use like these specific policy indicators rather than these broader indicators or more general. Yeah. And actually look at if you have a specific policy change, which they're looking at in Germany, you know, what difference that makes.
Okay. So I also have been thinking, for example, whether we can use micro individual level long-term care data for the research, kind of research you are doing. But one challenge I think we have been facing is in the micro long-term care data, we don't have much information on SES. So we have information on services utilization, we have information on frailty level, but usually, typically, we don't have information on the socioeconomic status.
But you did on the data that I was actually very impressed with the data that you collected. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Really impressive.
That is so impressive. I don't know anything else like it that I've seen anywhere. So yeah, but they were all similar socioeconomic status. So they were all linked.
Yes, they are very comparable because they are low income public housing. So pretty much they have comparable SES, so the economic status, and then they stay. I think two things that we have control is they also stay in there for a very long time. So as I say, we keep on getting challenge from the reviewers that there may be selection bias, that people with certain level of frailty may move to certain type of environment. But then we just told them that they have been there for 37 years. So then we pretty much silence the critique.
Yeah, exactly, because that would be very unusual. But I can see where those reviewers are probably come from the United States. Where when people do get frailer, if they can afford it, you know, they might move to communities that would facilitate. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to monopolize. I think Tarani.
There is question.
Yeah, Tarani.
Tarani. Okay.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Terry. So such fascinating presentations. Thank you so much for them. So I've got a question for both Terry and Karen, and it's about the role of public housing in Hong Kong and in the UK. So from the very little I know about public housing in Hong Kong, that you know, a relatively high proportion of older adults in Hong Kong live in public housing, you know, compared to the UK. And even though it can be a bit small, the quality tends to be quite good. But in the UK, I think maybe, you know, in terms of long-term care for older adults, they're living in homes that most of them own, but not necessarily they have the cash to maintain those homes, and so, you know, so I was just wondering if both of you could expand a little bit about you know, the built environments and the housing that the older adults are living in these countries.
Maybe I can share a little bit on the Hong Kong side. So more than 50% of older people in Hong Kong are living in subsidized housing. And more than 40% are living in public rental housing. That is the size that we are studying. Another 10% live in subsidized purchase housing. That means the government subsidize, you know, cut down. They get something like 30 to 40% discount when they buy the housing from the government. But there is there are restrictions on the sale of those properties. So it is why when we do the study with the residents in public housing, you know, estate in Hong Kong, we can claim we are doing a sample of majority of older people in Hong Kong. So we are talking about more than about 50%, or even a little bit more than 50% of the, you know, older people in Hong Kong, they are living in public, you know, housing.
That is
and
higher.
the quality actually depends. Most of them are quite not one time because they were built 40 years ago. So the facility become old, and many of them are in the process of being kind of demolished and rebuilt. So so moving the older people around during the kind of demolishing and rebuilding process is quite challenging too.
I mean, it's much less in the UK. Social housing is really important in the UK. I'm looking at Giorgio thinking, do you remember what it is in Alpha? No, but it's not going to be half.
Yeah.
I mean, most people do
I
own
would say
their
probably
homes.
4 or
out-
5%, you know, so.
Yeah.
Most of them have semi-detached or detached nice house with
Yeah.
garden, like you said. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a big role in the UK. The kind of social housing is important, but I think for a lot of older people, especially in the ELSA data that we're using, a lot of them are owner out. Oh, yeah, own their homes.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Terry, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah. So, so when you talk about the green spaces, or the community facilities, and you try to argue that those green spaces will have a positive effect on people's mental health, but do you think green spaces is a sort of a very highly endogenous variable, because people who tend to live next to a park or close to a green space, they tend to be slightly wealthier compared to those people who don't? Am I correct? Another thing is, do you think it's really the green space that is given the effect of people's mental health, or the interaction that people can have in the green space? Because there's lots of theories on how social interaction would improve people's mental health. Yeah, if you give people more space for interaction, it's actually the interaction which is having the positive effect on people's health, mental health, rather than the green space itself. For example, Denmark, who is a very leafy country, has the highest suicide rate in the world. So just by thinking about that, do you think the argument of green space have positive effect on people's mental health and reduce depression, the findings is robust?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. You are exactly right. Actually, in our study, we also, we separate natural green space versus, urban green space. So urban green space are the green space created in the urban planning process, and the natural green space are the mountains right next to, for example, the public housing estate. But actually, there are research showing independent effects of, for example, the natural green space to mental health. But in our study, if I'm correct, my memory is correct, actually natural green space has either non-significant effect or a little bit even negative effect to the mental wellness, or to a lot of outcome indicator. However, urban green space has a positive effect on the mental wellness outcome. And then you may be right that the social activity mediate the relationship between urban green space and the mental wellness. That is also in our finding. So we look into built environment, as I said, the urban park, the commercial activities. So actually, a fun thing is another study that we are right now writing up the results for all the open space. Actually, we send in our own researcher. So we have a few hundred public open space, and then we spend the whole summer, twice a week, we send in a researcher to do a environmental audit. So in the first environmental audit, we visit the site. We kind of take an observation on how much shade coverage, in that open space, the condition of benches or other recreational facility, and whether it is users disability friendly or not. So this is the first visit. Second visit, we have a research assistant bring in a 360 degree video camera. We walk through the whole public open space 5 times a day, and we capture who is using the space, their age group, as well as their activities. And we did it two times a week, 2 days in a week. So we capture all the activities as well as people using it. And then we use 2 researchers to code those qualitative data. So we spent almost half a year just to code those open space data. So actually in our data set, we have exactly who use those space, the characteristic of the space. And then we are trying to associate those characteristics with physical functioning as well as mental function. So we have a paper actually right now under review on this one. So that was a lot of fun when we expand to the environmental gerontology, and we are able, as way you said, is we are trying to differentiate the natural environment, the effect of greenery versus the activity, within those areas, and whether it affects. The outcome variable, we have both mental wellness, physical functioning, as well as quality functioning too. So that is the part that we feel very interesting. Because we have a database with 2,000 people to start with, and we have exactly the address, and then we combine it with the urban planning data. So we have the road network, the public transportation, the bus stop, and we also have commercial activity. But then we don't have much information on the quality of the open public area. So it is why we did the environmental survey by ourselves. So hopefully, by later this year, we should have papers coming out from those we call the environmental audit data, combined with survey, combined with urban planning data, coming out from publications.
You could do that.
I wish we could do that.
I know.
Yeah.
And this was funded, Terry, who funded this work?
It is a combination for the urban audit data. It comes from my endowment. So I'm an endowed professor, right? So I have an endowment which generates income for me to support some unfunded. So we saw it as more as a kind of data. So it is unfunded, pretty much generated from the endowed chair professorship I have.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, we need kings to adopt that.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting that we use the same mechanism. Actually, we have another study that we recruit 160 older people. We did a survey, and then we gave them a GPS device, and then we also use the EMA data collection. So for 15 days immediately after the survey, we know exactly where their travel pattern, as well as their activity levels. And then 5 times a week, we send them a short survey asking them their emotion, who they are with, what activity they are doing. So we have data from 160 people, right? 162, I believe, people on this one. So we are doing a data analysis right now on this one. So we are trying to really understand how environment shape behavior and then connect to well-being outcome.
Wow,
That's also opportunity between using those qualitative transfer qualitative data to quantitative, and then complement secondary data to do more like research Well, Terry, you should come back to do another presentation when you finish
when you finish the analysis.
Yeah, all right. I think we are really running late, and it's all my fault. Not being able to sort out all these technical problems, but I promise next time that I'm going to hire a bigger room with the real high flex setting. But I'm gonna hand it over to Vivian to close the seminar. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. So fantastic presentations from 2 very renowned professors. And then both of them, they are my very good old friend. And then I really learned a lot in terms of how, in terms of methodology and how the macro level, meso level, and individual level data can be collected and integrated and linked with each other to solve or to answer some very sophisticated research questions. For example, how the environment would have impact on the mental well-being, and how the long-term care system or the system change towards state change towards family that could have an impact on people with different socioeconomic status. That is the inequality. I'm really learned a lot, and I'm very happy that we have a very good start, and then hope that we can have more chances to have collaboration and also sharing. So we are looking forward to our next joint seminar. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you
so much. We really
and please help us to do some evaluation. Can you scan the QR code and then help us to do the evaluation? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Vivian.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Chair.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will visit you in July, actually. Yeah.
Good, we'll be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.